All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Startup Business Q&A episode 85. Episode 85, everywhere we are live, I think. So, hello Facebook, hello YouTube, looks like we're live there as well. And of course, hello Instagram, thanks everyone for jumping in. So, today's a fun one. I asked for a few questions from you guys, and there's been loads coming through. And I think it's going to be very interesting going through this, because there's been some fun questions about building a business, which is what this whole thing is about. It's about startups, right? So I'm excited to have a focus on the priorities around a startup. Some people are asking things about how to build the first content to make it engaging. Some people are asking things such as how do we make sure we are working or not doing any work and making money off it. So all that stuff we'll get into. Everyone jumping in here, thank you so much. If you have a question about startup businesses, then make sure you put it in the comments here. I'm checking over on Facebook as well. Hello, John. Thanks very much for the wave over from you. Ian, Panos, Ryan, Shaya, and everyone here on Instagram as well. So Daphne, Celtic Gal 1974. But hands down, it's Instagram that always has the best names. BSG Beauty, McEwen88, Diogenes Rodriguez Jr., BCCG Main. I don't know if these are your actual names. I'm presuming not, but nice to see you all. So if this is your first time watching, this is Startup Business Q&A episode 85. Where have you been? So we're doing this every single week. It's been, well, obviously we're pushing towards now 2 years, and basically each week you guys submit your questions and we go through them. It takes about 40 minutes or so. And of course, if there's questions in here on the comments, then go ahead and do it. So my name's Richard Moore, and it's exciting having worked with so many different startups, and literally every week there are new people with new questions to ask. So let's get straight in. Danny Patrick has asked, Richard, what tools or tips should an entrepreneur use to build consistent and engaging content? Well, in terms of tips, one thing I would say, everyone jumping in here, by the way, on Instagram, hello, huge love for you all. Thanks so much for jumping on. There's a lot of you here. And yeah, what I would say is that in terms of tips, one of the big things is look at content you can repurpose. This Q&A serves a massive purpose. So one purpose is obviously having a value-laden, free touch point for an audience, which, to break that down, what it means is it's content that's filled with value. So ideally it gives more than it takes. It takes some of your time, but it gives you a load of value. And it is obviously it's completely free for you to access through the social platforms if you're on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. But the main thing about it is that that content can then be repurposed. So after this, the team will then take snippets of it, break it down, and create video for Instagram, video for YouTube, things like that. In addition, it creates some potential stills for images, quotes, things like that as well. All that kind of thing can come from it. It's then used for a podcast as well. So it's great because this is one example of content that can work across different platforms. Going live really does work anywhere. So, you tend to find that doing a stream like this across these different platforms is very efficient way of generating great content. I think what you've got to do, though, is think hard about the audience you've got. If I look at the free Facebook group around the Entrepreneur Business Group, so that's just facebook.com/groups/Entrepreneur Business Group, you'll find that overwhelmingly people really like just constantly engaging on things like, I suppose things like, getting them pumped, some quick tips and things like that, and just kind of keep being kept on track with their businesses. So that's great. But something like our premium group, so the Entrepreneur Business Club, that's slightly different. And that club is focused a little bit more on higher end resource. So, that's content that's downloadable. So there's like a resource library there, Danny. So what I would suggest is try and test what your audience is really keen on. Some people need loads of resources. Some people want to have just kind of motivational quotes. You've got to think like, what is it they're really after? And so, because value looks different for every single person, I suppose. But to build consistent content, it's about showing up every day and getting used to this idea of of it being part of your routine. Like making a cup of coffee in the morning, like having a shower, breathing in and out, or putting on trousers, pants if you're in the States, then it's important you create content as well. It has to be part of your business day. In the same way as part of your business day involves getting new customers, it should be content generation as well. I really feel that's essential. It is one of the foundations of a business in 2018, of a business that's going places, is to create good content. And I think it's being consistent. The best way to do it is to schedule it. This is this idea of this when to do list. It's 10 a.m. That's when I'm going to schedule some content on Buffer or Hootsuite, and it will be against Instagram, LinkedIn, and a Facebook post, something like that. Then I'll do the same again in 4 hours from now. Whatever it is, I think that will help. Also, it's worth maybe having time in a week where perhaps you have something like an hour set aside when you will have time to just put down some posts to kind of schedule or to save some posts. And that then can give you a foundation to make sure you have something in the background that you can post when you need it. So if I have kind of a little inventory of posts I can or of content I can draw from, it's a good idea to do that, because then each day I'll have something I can put out. It's no good having loads of content one day, as you see a lot of this on Twitter. Post loads on one day, then just forget about it for a while, then come back and do a load again another day, then forget about it. Consistency is king for all this kind of thing. But the hack is schedule it. Like you schedule your lunch, like you schedule a meeting, schedule time for content generation. With daylight savings, this has been pushed, this Q&A today has been pushed back a bit, but typically every single Monday at 1 p.m. London time, so at 8 a.m. Eastern time in the States, there is always this Q&A live. And having that means that I'm consistent in generating it. And what happens, you've got to look at it this way as well, Danny, it creates a habit of consumption in your viewers. So if they expect content every week to come out at certain times and dates, then it kind of compels you to do it. It's funny because some people weren't aware that even though I posted about it, some people weren't aware that I'd pushed it back an hour today, the Q&A. And so I've got messages saying, hey, did I miss the live stream? When is it? And it's like, these are people who every week they get up and they expect it to be on at that time. So that's helped me breed the consistency. I think that's something I would suggest as well. Kiara, thank you very much for jumping in on Instagram. And I've got a question here so Danny, I hope that helps. That's a start point. The other thing I'd say about engaging content is just make sure you're, once you've produced a piece of content, you then go through and engage with your team about it afterwards. And by your team, I mean, your audience and people who are kind of in orbit around you. Because it's essential to understand that a lot of that content might be rubbish for them. And if you engage with them and you notice that they don't really care that much, well, you need to respond to that by not producing that kind of content again. People say you shouldn't care about likes and comments and things like that. I think that's not true, but I think you've got to use likes as a kind of a barometer of how valuable that particular piece of content is. If you're getting loads and loads of attention on it, well, it's a signifier that content needs to to be produced a bit more. And if you're getting nothing, I mean, I've done this before in my Facebook group where there's 3,500 people, and you get no comments or engagement against the post. It's like, that was rubbish. Don't do that again. So you're always experimenting, and you kind of, after a while, you tune into the audience and what they're after. There's a question just coming in through the Facebook stream from Panos. How would you try to provide value through your content if you're in the fashion industry, Richard? Well, I think that the fashion industry, like lifestyle and like sports and nutrition and wellness as well, it's an interesting industry because if you look at a lot of the content, go to the likes of Pinterest and Instagram, you'll see that the content is very much very average. There's a lot of people who are doing exactly the same thing, which is just posting pictures of themselves wearing their clothes. With most industries, and I think it's no different here, you need to make sure you're wearing your opinions on your sleeve. What I mean by this, you need to actually share what you think about something as opposed to just simply sharing something. So if I was going to create value through my content in the fashion industry, I would naturally need to be sharing fashion and what I feel is trending. Maybe I'm going to shows and things like that. Personally, what I would be doing is I would be spending a lot of time in the street, and I would be, for instance, in London, looking at what I personally think is cool, and I would be taking, I would be going out to people and interviewing them and saying, I really like what you're wearing. I'm running a fashion blog or vlog. Can I speak to you about it? Where did you get each of these items? And sharing that, and then sharing my opinion as well. Because the thing is that I think in that kind of industry, you do well to share what you feel rather than just sharing fashion. There's a lot more traction to be had in sharing your opinion. And what will happen is it's very divisive being like that. What it means is that it will divide the audience a bit. People won't be so keen, but then some people will be really keen. And especially those that were kind of like, oh, I'm kind of into fashion. The ones that really dig your opinions, they will really love you because you're being quite divisive about it. Same with politics, same with religion as well. If you have some conviction about certain ideas, some people really don't agree with it, no problem, it gets rid of them. And some people really agree with you. You tend to have a bit of a stronger audience when you're being opinionated, I find. So I hope that answers your question, Panos. That's what I would be doing. I would be on the street because I think fashion is exciting there, and it's where it's kind of starts. That's where the grassroots of it are. And in fact, someone were doing something weird or interesting in certain neighborhoods where there's certain cultures that develop in real life, as opposed to on a catwalk or a runway or a catwalk even, isn't that what I mean? So let's go to another question here from Daniel Nunes. He said, do you have suggestions on how to avoid being a consumer and becoming a content creator? Suggestions on how to establish balance for the sake of business? And would you recommend a cleanse or temporary shutdown of social media for the sake of business? These are really good questions, actually. I'm interested in your response, guys. So if you write a response to this as well, what do you think? I'm going to come back to you in a sec, but what do you think about the idea of a temporary shutdown on your social media? Would you do it? Would you go without Facebook for a week? Or some kind of cleanse like that? Would you do it? Thumbs up if you would, or if you wouldn't, or either way, what's your opinion on it? My view on the original question, though, is do you have suggestions on how to avoid being a consumer and becoming a content creator? I found myself doing this a few years back, and I was producing content, but I was more of my time on social media was consuming. And I realized actually what I'm doing is I'm just fueling other people's kind of algorithm. I'm helping them to get more attention for their stuff. It's not really serving me any purpose at all. Very few pieces of content out there are that important that I have to consume them. I'm not being arrogant. It's just like there's plenty of value in the world, but a lot of the value is best if you go and seek it. So if I want to go learn something, I will actively search on, say, YouTube and find that piece of information and go and consume it, and then that's it. You don't tend to find tremendously valuable stuff that you're looking for by passively sitting back scrolling through Facebook. That you will stumble across great value, but that's quite an inefficient way of doing it. Far better to be more calculated is my view. So I use social media for two things. One is producing content and engaging with the people who engage with that, and the other thing is for actively seeking out pieces of information on a person, a business, or a brand or something like that, but never to sit and scroll through, because I feel that although you can get a general vibe of what's going on, you kind of through osmosis you get the vibe of what, like how people are using social media and what people have to say and things like that by consuming it in more kind of deliberate ways. I don't know if you guys feel the same, but I really strongly feel that scrolling through passively, it's not going to serve much of a purpose. And when it does, that's such a rare occasion compared with the number of videos of cats that it's just not really worthwhile use of time. So I think that we need to be really careful about consuming and also look at moderation. There's some people who are huge celebrities, and I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this really like the likes of Gary Vaynerchuk and so on. Now, it's not that his content is samey. He is driving home the same message a lot of the time. I'm sure you'd agree. But the reality is, if you watch a Daily V every day, one of his vlogs every day, you're going to get plenty from it. But do you need it every day? Maybe not. Or maybe that is what you do. Maybe that's your little dosage each day, that 10 minutes. But then to go watch someone else doing the same thing and again and again and again, I don't feel you get that much from it. I found the same that when I was walking in the streets, if I had my phone out to start with, I would be consuming something. But then I thought to myself, actually, this is a really good opportunity to create instead. I feel you need to have a kind of a temperature check on this all the time. If you're not creating 5 times more than you're consuming, I think you're doing it wrong. I think you should be creating far more disproportionate amount of your time than you are consuming. So if it's about even, I think you should look at that, because that should be there for, if you're creating right, that's a heck of a lot of consumption. And it's not that it serves no purpose, but it's not going to move you forward that far. You might be researching stuff, that's different. That is different. That's getting some analysis on something, or learning a hack, or working out how to operate something. I get that. And that's called learning. But just the passive consumption thing, even if it's things that's relevant to your world, it should be a small portion of your time compared with the amount that you're creating. But look at it this way. If I ever have a moment when I could sit and just consume some content, I have to ask the question first. Add this filter to yourself. Should I do this, or could I create some content right now? Where is my audience going to win from this? This is the way you should look at it, right? Are they going to win through my consumption of this piece of content and then the information I might be able to leverage in the future? Or are they going to win by me creating some content now, be it going live for like this, or writing an article, for instance, or something else? You know, to weigh that up, just be calculated in everything, really. But it's important because I feel that the wins from passive consumption of content are so sporadic that it's not entirely worth doing that much. So be a bit more calculated about it. I'm interested if you guys feel the same. Thumbs up if you feel the same as me, or if you, because some people disagree. Seriously, some people's view, and it's cool if it is, some people's view is you should be online consuming all the time, and scrolling through is, loosely speaking, a good way of finding out what people are really into. I kind of agree and disagree, because I agree, but it takes forever. You don't have the time for it. And I also disagree, because of course it's a heavily worked algorithm. It's not a true sense of what the market or the world is into. It's a sense of what Facebook believes you should be looking at based on, you know, what your likes are, recommendations, and what you've said over Alexa or whatever it might be. So that's something worth bearing in mind. Having a look at some of the questions coming through on Facebook here. Actually, a good question, a good point here. Ian Tiska has said, I would repurpose my time using social media for business instead of personal reasons. You know, it's difficult because it's meant to be social. So it's meant to be social media for, you know, seeing friends and family, things like that. I kind of agree, but I like the social, rather than social media, it tends to be for me social reality. So I go and see people, and then online it's a bit more, it's not all mercenary business, but I tend to find it's not just hanging out and chatting as much. But that's just me. Devon Scott has written, I believe in Facebook fasts and social sabbaticals. I love getting into the habit of writing informed comments on every bit of media I read, then copying my comments to my own social media as original content. Actually, something I've done a lot of whenever I've spoken to clients or written a report or something, as I'm writing an answer to a question or something like that, I tend to find when I write the answer, I'm like, that is great content there. And this is another hack for you, Danny. Just like I'm saying, you know, this live Q&A, there'll be snippets of it where I'll grab a bit and that becomes a 45-second Instagram video because it's perfectly encapsulated on its own. But I do feel that if you look at things like, so like posting a comment, sometimes they standalone look like really great bits of content. So they're perfect for tweets sometimes and things like that. It's a very good point, Devon. Anything else here? Devon, scrolling through my feed passively makes me physically repulsed. look, if you have, some people aren't necessarily going to view life in the same way, but I do feel that, you know, you only have so much time, and if you're going to spend it passively rather than actively, you know, searching for something, then you're just passing time. And if anything, you're helping other people, which is kind of altruistic, but you're not really helping people. You're just perpetuating the idea that we need the fix, and kind of fueling Facebook, which is, again, nothing bad about fueling Facebook, because Facebook's a valuable resource. But I do think that you can be a bit more useful with your time to yourself and others. Christine, how many hours in a day do you spend on social media creating content? Richard, on social media, I spend very little time creating content, because a lot of it's created off social media, then uploaded. But, you know, I would do this. This is live on Instagram, on YouTube and Facebook. And I would say I have a team that work with me. Everything goes through me, but there are some bits here and there that will be the team suggesting or writing things, and then I will check them over. But in the main, I spend, might be an hour each day producing some content, writing an article or something like that. And just, if you do a bit every day, and the key thing to scale up is you repurpose it, then you can win. Because you've got a lot of platforms these days. I'm big on Vero right now, Vero. If you're not on it, I think you should check it out. There's several million people on it now. And that's, for me, it's not like the next big thing, but it is something I'm really dabbling in. And I think, you know, yet another platform to produce content on, and understanding it means you got to think, well, how could I repurpose content is a better idea than how can I just create new things. Some types of content work well across lots of different platforms, so I do that. Others it needs a tweak, and sometimes I'll write an article for Influensive, and then I'll repurpose that same article and kind of say the same kind of thing, and then that'll be a blog post, or it might go on Thrive or Medium or something like that. So all of that is possible. I just think it's important to hack away at it, so you're not producing a completely new piece of content every single time for every platform. Otherwise, you'll never get any work done. And my job isn't producing content on social media. I actually spend most of my time with clients. So this is startups and established businesses, and working with training their sales team, helping them grow and scale and things like that. And then the social media kind of content generation is relatively a tiny part of that. So that's kind of how it works. Any other questions here? Yeah, let's look at this one then. This is a follow-up for Daniel's, because he said, would you recommend a cleanse or temporary shutdown for the sake of business? Yes and no. Here's why. If your business doesn't really leverage social media that much, and you feel like it's a vice and it's getting in your way a bit, well, yeah, try a cleanse. If it's something that's slowing you down, like with all things, if you overconsume them, they kind of get in the way a bit. But if your business is predominantly, or at least for a significant part, like mine, for instance, leveraging social media, then I say no. I wouldn't do a kind of a temporary shutdown for a week of my social media, because there are certain things that it does to help the business, and there are people who rely on the business. You know, there are people who are employed by the business, and so to shut it down because I felt like I was overdoing it, I don't feel that's a solution. I feel a little less extreme a solution is just use it less. You know, sometimes, seriously, this is important, right? Sometimes the solution is as simple as employ some willpower, grow up, and don't do it as much, rather than trying to find some elaborate or complex way to actually, you know, maybe kind of have it only a little bit of each day or something. No, just don't use it as much. You know, I went through a period, I remember, this was ages ago, like 10 years ago or so, when I was playing computer games quite a lot, and I just thought to myself, what, you know, it's really crushing me. I'm doing loads of stuff I shouldn't be doing, as in I'm up late at night and I'm playing this more than anything else. Just don't play it as much. Then after a while, I just thought it's better now because I'm now just using it a little bit. And then I got to the point I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to sell the PlayStation, and got rid of it. And it's just because I wasn't really that bothered, but I kind of got in a bit of an addiction. As I said, sometimes you just got to grow up Okay, sometimes you just got to stop with all the scrolling and just be a bit more conscious. Another way, a way to look at it, and this is kind of the this might help you a bit, is say, who's controlling who? This is how I view this kind of stuff. Who's controlling who? Are you being controlled by the compulsion to go and check your social media? If you are, then how weak is that? Like, you know, and are you happy with that? Are you cool with the idea that every time your phone goes off, so a little notification of WhatsApp or whatever, that like there's something in your brain go, something there, that kind of Pavlovian response you've got to it. Are you cool with that? Are you okay with being the slave to that master? If you're not, you need to start being a bit more active and consciously aware of that. It's interesting because a little earlier today, I'm writing a report up, and I got an email flash up in the bottom, like the bottom right hand corner of my screen, and it was from the CEO of a client. Now, it's the same response to like receiving a WhatsApp or a tweet or something like, or a retweet or whatever. You're like, oh, what's that? But what I'm doing now, I've done this for a few years, and it's really helped me, is to say, there's a time for that, and it's not now. What am I going to drop this just to check to see what it is? I've learned, because now I'm 37, I'm not ancient, but I've been around the block long enough, and I've learned, I'm sure you have as well, let me know if you haven't, because this is a truth, that most things can probably keep. Most things aren't that urgent or critical. Because if they were, you wouldn't get an email, would you? Or if you did, the title would pop up in the notification box, urgent in capital letters or something like that. Or the guy would call me, right? But he just sent an email. So the response to it should be, all things in good time. I'm working on this right now. When I've finished it, then I'll go check it. Rather than, oh, I'll do that. And what you're doing is you're moving all in different directions all the time. It's far more effective to say to yourself, stay on task. And if you go, oh, but that's hard. Yeah, it is. And it's hard because you're conditioned to be in that kind of habit of responding all the time because you're under control. You're under the influence of the notification ding sound, okay? So grow up and say, like, who's in charge now? Just start asking yourself, if you see the notification, if the phone goes, ask yourself, who's in charge right now? And if you really don't have the willpower, right, what you need to do is cut it out completely. And this draws onto this idea. A guy here called Andrew Hall has written, and he said, I've been off notifications, which has been a happy medium of off social media, but not. So I only get notified by my phone ringing, a text, and all social media is waiting for when I make time for it. Absolutely spot on, Andrew. I think that's a good way of doing it. I'd love to know if this is comparable to what Daniel is asking, especially because it's so integrated to our businesses and social lives. It's a mistake if your business relies on social to not engage in your social, but it's also a mistake to think that some things won't keep, okay? Unless it's time critical because you've said to an audience, at this time, this thing will happen, so you need to deliver. Other than that, it will keep. You can always come back to our comments later on. You should be a bit too busy to be able to respond to all social media in the moment, right? But you should also, equally, you should make the time to get back to people as soon as you can. So there's a balance there that's required. I feel strongly about this, that more people are doing this than they realize. More people are under control by social media. More people are totally controlled by that sound of a notification, and you have to gain control. If you can't do it, if you can't exercise willpower, get rid of it. I went through a period, a great example for me, if you were in America, you'd call them cookies, we call them biscuits, but your biscuits are our scones. It's all a bit of a nightmare. But the things you dip in your tea, right? I went through a period of I couldn't stop slamming these biscuits. So I would have a cup of tea and I'd eat an entire bag of cookies, as you'd say. So rather than trying to restrain myself, just get rid of them. Just don't have them in the house. Like the PlayStation, it was easier afterwards. Like, just get rid of it. Then I don't have it. Then I can't play it. Then there's no problem. If you have an issue with Facebook, if you're on it all the time, if you feel you can't control yourself, it's so easy. There's so many websites out there that will help you just block it and get someone else to do the password, or they'll only allow access at certain times. So, you know, there are things you can do, but the best thing to do if you don't have willpower is go extreme and take it out completely. Social media, if you feel like you're on it all the time, then you need to think about one way of doing it. I know someone who did this is have their friend set the password, and so their friend logs in for them. Kind of, they gave them the password or whatever, then they change it or something like that. They send them a text like, here's your password for the day. It's quite a nice hack to have. And then they have like a set hour when they can use it or whatever. I don't know, but I think the thing is, if you are scrolling inanely through banal content, the likelihood is high that you need to hear it if you are under control by that social media. And so you have to decide, are you cool with being controlled? And the answer invariably is no. And if the answer is no, then grow up and get control yourself. Because it's a bit more adult to say, I'm not going to be controlled by that. You could apply this to anything. Arguably, you could apply it to smoking and things like that. If you have a problem with smoking, it's like, well, I'm under control. But that's not my space. I'm not going to preach about things like that. But I just think sometimes you just got to grow up a bit and say, you know, to stop being so damn weak and do something. Get on with something calculated as a task or a decision in your day, rather than just like being led, basically. Don't be led. Same for consumption of content, like Daniel was saying, you know, a complete shutdown social media is what that's doing. It's not fixing the problem, it's just removing it altogether. So arguably you're never going to have social media issues if you don't ever use it for a while, but it doesn't fix it. It doesn't stop you being stronger. You need to work on it. It takes time, but you just got to actively say, I'm going to have this set time when I check my emails for half an hour. That's what I do. Like 10 minutes in the morning, check to see if there's nothing major or urgent. Just look at them, then leave them. Then get on, check social media. Anything going on? I'm good. Okay, I'll come back to it in 4 hours from now at a scheduled time, and that's it. Rather than, I'll just type a sentence in an article, and then I'd go and check Facebook, and I saw a content notification came in. You have to set the agenda and lead yourself. Don't be led by external stuff. I get that it's trying to control you, but you have to grow up and lead your own day. It's sometimes as black and white as that. Stop being so weak. Okay, Andrew, great response there. Thanks for the question, Daniel. It brought a bit of a rant about, but invaluable stuff. Hopefully this helps. Wow, it appears to have resonated with you. Thanks very much on Facebook. So let's get to another question. James Emmanuel, firstly, thank you. It's crazy, right? Get this. This is 85 weeks of this startup Q&A, doing it every week. And I still know if someone's given me a question for the first time. I'm like 99% positive when I say it. So James Manuel, thank you. I think this is your first time in orbit around me and the first question for a Q&A. So even now, after doing this many weeks, I'm so deeply appreciative that people get out of bed on a Monday morning and go consciously, I'm going to go listen to Richard Moore do his Q&A, and James, for you to send in a question as well, that means a lot. So thank you. It's a wonderful thing. So I don't want to go over the top, but it does matter to me when someone decides to engage. Okay, my question is, how do you create and operate a blog as a business? When I mean a business, I mean a system and not a job. How do you create something that doesn't need you to work, something that functions with or without you, also incorporating the legal backing of your intellectual properties? So look, the author that jumps in here, of course, is Tim Ferriss. The famous book, The 4-Hour Workweek, is misread and misunderstood by many as if I read that book, if I buy that book, will it mean I only work 4 hours a week? What he's showing, as a very intelligent guy, by the way, who went to Princeton, he's not stupid. He's showing how to hack at a normal business to streamlining it. It's a wonderful title for a book because it's highly marketable. However, a title like that doesn't necessarily encourage exactly the right audience, because it encourages a lot of people who don't want to do any work. James, I'm not suggesting for a moment this is you. What you'll know if you read that book is that he's not just very intelligent, but Tim Ferriss has worked his nuts off to build a business and then hacked away at what parts can essentially be outsourced or automated. And if you can do one of the two with as much as possible, it of course trims the fat both on time and you know, and things like, ironically, it actually saves you money in terms of your spending money, but it saves you a lot. So I think firstly, let's answer this first question from James. How do you create and operate a blog as a business? Well, if your blog's interesting, people will be interested in it. If they're interested in it, you now have attention. In 2018, attention is the leverage point. It is the thing that is exciting. This is why a couple of weeks ago, I launched a marketing campaign with a car manufacturer, French car manufacturer called Peugeot, owned by PSA Group, and a hire car business in the UK, or Europe rather, called Europcar. And they came to me rather than advertising on TV for their fleet or advertising in a magazine. They're using me because I have a particular demographic with attention, and that's what's mattering. That's ultimately what people care about when it comes to advertising, is not just does it go in front of eyeballs. That's very 15 years ago. And I know this because I was selling digital marketing in 2002, 2003. Okay, so back then it was saying that you have eyeballs, that was enough. Whereas now it's not good enough. Eyeballs is nothing, like it's crap. Like that's, how many of you have been, thumbs up if you've been here, how many people have been into a Facebook group? You know, the ones where you automatically added, and there's 50,000 people in it, and not a single person engaged in any of the posts. You'd be thinking there should be thousands of comments on every post, and there's nothing. Okay, so they're a waste of time. Eyeballs means nothing nowadays. What matters is engagement, and as a result of attention. So attention is crucial. If your blog is good, it won't be good enough. I'll say it again. If your blog is good, it won't be good enough. It has to be great. Yeah, I said this last time, I think, in the words of Seth Godin, it needs to be remarkable. Good is dangerous. Good is bad. Good is average. If your blog is terrible, at least people will talk about it. It might even go viral for being so bad. But if it is just good, which requires the prefix just, because if it's just good, it becomes average and it sits with everyone else. Okay? So it needs to be great. You need to have something compelling about it. You need to have something different about it. And the thing that's different doesn't have to be that you're using a funny font, or you write everything on the wrong side of the page, or you always write in gold. It could just be you and your own twist on things. It doesn't have to be that crazy. But that has to even more be leveraged by distribution. So you could have a great blog, but to create a business from it, you have to have distribution, which ultimately is what I'm talking about here. It's about engagement. If no one reads your blog, you are worthless, okay, in terms of online business. If everyone reads your blog, you're worth something, because it's a leverage point then. For at the bottom, you can then do offers or giveaways, or if you choose to, of course, you can move to the world of influencer marketing, where people will pay you to sell something. And or you might do joint ventures and things like that. So if you look at one of the most important or the most consistent blogs that's widely read, it's Seth Godin's blog, in fact. And it's very low key. Sometimes it's a couple of lines. He spends his day doing his work and thinking and things like that, and then he'll write his blog post. And it's literally every single day there will be an article or a blog post, or in the sense of it being something he's written, goes out to his email list. It's a huge amount of people, and every day it's just the value. But within that, usually as a kind of a PS at the bottom, you can access his website, at which point you can buy any of his 19 bestsellers, or you might want to go to, you could do the Alt MBA program. So you can find it all that, you know, and all that's automated. When you buy into his course, or when you buy his publications, he has no awareness that you've done that, okay? It's all automated. It's the same as when someone buys Monetize You, my course. The only awareness I have of it is that I might notice it in as one of the buys of the product on my phone in the morning, for instance. But in the main, it's just, it's an automated thing. So you create a great blog. That has to be a given, right? That the blog is spectacular. If it is, then a good thing to do is give great value. And at the very bottom, as a PS, almost an afterthought, is you say you kind of give your right hook in Gary Vee parlance. You say, hey, there's this thing. Check out this new. There's the new course on our site. Let me know what you think, or check out the latest whatever here. It's an opportunity for you to ask for something. But the reason why you do it at the bottom is a PS, and this is the big takeaway. If you're running the blog or you're doing email marketing, if you put great value in, then and at the bottom you do your ask, okay, where you ask for something in return, you get a very good response in the sense that the people who care and who are interested are reading that value. And if they're interested in you that much that they've read all that value, they're going to be receptive. So at the bottom, they'll then see your ask. If you put your ask at the top, then you're engaging with, sure, the people who would have bought it, but also loads of people who aren't going to buy it. And those people who aren't going to buy it are going to be seriously switched off because now you're asking for something straight away. So if you put it at the bottom, the only people that will see it are the ones who actually get that far. And the ones who get that far are going to be the interested ones by default because they've read that far, and therefore they've earned the little link to for the buy or whatever it is you're trying to send. So that's a very good tip. And what it means is it looks like you're overwhelmingly focused on giving value, which you are. And at the bottom, then of course you have your product after. So that's how you do it really. But you're asking here, James, how do you create something that doesn't need you to work? Why do you not want to work? What do you want to do instead? Don't you want to do things related to your blog? And I think you need to think about what work really means here. I would never want to run my businesses so that I don't have to run my businesses because I enjoy running them. That's the point. That's why I did them in the first place. The reason why I'm not a hairdresser, and for one of my businesses I teach Taekwondo, is because relatively I'm deeply interested in Taekwondo and not so much about hairdressing, right? So it's like, why would I build a hairdressing business? Well, if I felt I could build a hairdressing business where I didn't work on it, I see that. But that never happens because you need to be interested in what you're doing to actually take it somewhere. The Taekwondo business is at a point where on a Monday night and on a Thursday night I go teach. And in terms of the work and the admin around it, that's not even a 4-hour work week. It's like a 20-minute work week, or if that. Sometimes there's nothing to do because that is all automated. You've got to look at what things you can, if it's onboarding people into reading a blog that is a paywall in between it. Well, then there are plenty of things. My Slack premium community group has LaunchPass, which is a type of technology where someone will sign up for the community. They get a free trial. Then they are automatically subscribed to pay each month. And that LaunchPass software, it monitors if someone has paid against, if they're in the group. If they stop their payments, then they're rejected from the group and all that kind of thing. So you can automate this stuff. And I don't do any of that. It's done by this kind of app, if you like. And you can do loads of things like that. I think there's increasingly, there's a lot of people providing these kind of tools to build whatever it is you're building. Your blog should come from an autoresponder rather than just sent out from your Hotmail to, dragging and dropping everyone's emails. And it should come from an autoresponder. So those that read it, they get targeted something else. Those that don't get targeted something. Do you see what I mean? So all of that needs to be a system put in place. And what, if anything, as a takeaway you get from Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week, it's that it's a lot of bloody work to set this kind of stuff up. Once it's done, you might be in a place where you're streamlining it well, but it took him ages. And then getting VAs in to streamline things takes ages, okay? There's no some kind of quick fix where you don't end up working. I suggest strongly you do something you want to do. you hack at it to make it efficient and streamlined, then you do more stuff you want to do rather than build a business you don't have to do any work in. They don't exist. I'm sorry. Even if you are you put yourself as chairman and everyone else is doing stuff for you and it's all automated beautifully, you're still going to be involved in the business. And here's the thing, in order to get there, it have to be a business you're keen on anyway. So you won't want to drop it because you'll want to be involved because it's something you're interested in. It's just like, there's no, someone's right here, Disco Hunt has rightly said there's no such thing as a free lunch. Think hard. If you want to create a work or a job or a business that you don't have to do work in, you're trying to create the wrong kind of business and it will definitely fail. What you need to do is create a business you want to work in, then that's not an issue. People are often saying things like, oh, wow, you do a lot of work, man, you work loads. Isn't that hard? Isn't that hard work? It's like, no, because I'm enjoying it because it's good fun. Hello, Catherine. Thanks for joining on Instagram. So the idea is to work on something you want to work on. Then it isn't work. It's not work. Last week, I was really a real privilege, actually, on the Thursday around lunchtime after meeting with someone as a new potential client at a champagne bar. That was which is really cool. I then went to the Ministry of International Trade and met with the head of technology and trade for smart cities for the government and had a coffee with him. Then I met with a life coach who'd come over from Brussels in Belgium, was flying out to Austin for South by Southwest, meeting great people. That technically is work. Why would I not want to do that? That was really good fun to meet very different types of people in that day. And, the whole point is you either do something you want to do and you scale it to a point where it's streamlined, so you do more of that stuff you want to do. But you'll never get to a point where you don't do anything on it because you can't get there really, because you'll probably want to be involved in it because it's something you want to do. If you want to scale to the point where you don't work in something you don't care about, you ain't going to get there because you won't want to do it. Simple as that, okay? Wait and see. You keep jumping in, so I love it. Thanks so much. You're making it look popular. What's the difference between a podcast, a blog, and other avenues? Well, the difference principally is that a podcast is audio, a blog is written, and a vlog, as an addition, is a video kind of content, if you like. I can't see why you wouldn't do all of them. For me, it's stimulating to produce all this stuff. And this Q&A you're listening to right now is repurposed then as a podcast, and it's then hosted on therichardmoore.com, so you can hear it each week, as well as it being found on the SoundCloud account as well. So there's a few differences, but all of them give great content, and at the end, your call to action is the prize for those who have been enjoying it to actually go through and to kind of buy something if they want to. But that will only be applicable to people who actually care about it, and that's good. That's what you actually want. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Let's get into another question before we finish up. Ian Tisker, any tips on crafting a great social media post? Any books or resources to check out on the content? It's not that books are going to be out of date because social media moves forward really fast. But what I do think is that you need to understand that when books are written, they do kind of highlight a moment in time. If I take Gary Vaynerchuk, he's released Crushing It recently. If you look at Crush It, the 2009 book he released, the principles of that book made it timeless. Loads of it is out of date. Like Vine doesn't exist anymore, and a lot of stuff just kind of isn't about and isn't applicable and has changed. And the stuff it suggests at times it's like that wouldn't work anymore. But in the main, the principles behind producing content and using it, because the internet's such a great thing, are strong. And if you read Crushing It now, you can see a very up-to-date 2018 approach to building social media. But by a light year, the way to understand what you should be doing on your social media is to do it. Get in the trenches, get on the pitch, whatever analogy you want, and actually do it. Because if you do it, you see how people respond, and then you can respond to that. because it's always a moving target. And if it's not, the platform then changes how it operates to keep up to date. And then you end up with having to change things anyway, right? So certain content you might do one year is different to the content you do the next. Don't go to books for it so much. I mean, I'm just trying to think about some of the books on the shelves here, but sure, check out Jab, 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 Right Hook. Check out Crushing It. That'll give you a vibe about it because the guy knows what he's talking about. But get online and produce against the CARE approach. So my CARE approach, C-A-R-E, CARE, is consistency. So every day you're there. Abundance, so plenty of content. Relevance, so keep the signal pure on what you're talking about for your audience. No kind of left field post about something completely irrelevant. And engage. So engagement's the crucial leverage point, because if I'm constantly engaging with the people who are as an audience engaging with it, then I'm finding out if they're responding and interested in the content. Then I can find out what things really pop, and I can do more of that. It is the best way to create the best social media post, and I feel strongly that you can never over experiment. Every single day I'm trying different types of content, so different platforms, different mediums, but also different kind of vibes or messages to it as well. And even the Q&A has kind of been evolved over time, because now it's an Instagram live, where it wasn't when we first started. It was purely Facebook. It's on YouTube now as well. It's then a podcast as well. It might be that certain things just don't pop. But Instagram live, for it to sustain interest, it makes sense that it's something worth doing. So, but any tips? Put yourself as much as you can in the shoes of the people you're trying to reach. If you don't know who you're trying to reach and what their values, interests, and favorites and likes are, then you need to think hard on that before you produce content. Invariably, it's content for you, because in your default, natural, authentic state, you're probably going to be attracting people who are similar to you, same values, same worldview, same outlook on things. So if you're attracting similar people, ask yourself, would I consume this? If I was scrolling through my timeline, would I actually read this? Would that be interesting? Is it striking? Is it remarkable? And if it is, it's probably right, And then again, we're back to that thing of, well, then distribute it. Make sure it gets out to the right people. Collaborate with people. Good tip. One big tip I'd say, though, is if you're producing a social media post, a great thing to do is collaborate. What I mean by collaborate may well be that you mention someone in the post, or at the very least that you hashtag, so to collaborate with something that's trending, or you have your post collaborate with a brand or a name of someone because they're worth mentioning in it. Or at the very least, after the post has gone out, the first comment really should be you stimulating some discussion, because engagement's crucial. Remember, that's where this attention comes from that makes this all worthwhile. So your first comment could be along the lines of, I know that this is of value to you, or I'd love your insight on this, John and Wendy, because you know that those two people are highly engaged in that particular theme that you've just been writing about. And so it's not spamming them. They're going to be interested in it. And if they engage, well, you're going to leverage, going to start bringing their audience in, but also you would want to, and so would they, because it's valuable for their audience. Do you see what I mean? So done the right way, that's a really good kind of hack that gets things moving. So maybe that helps. Matan, thanks for joining. Ben, thanks for joining in as well. Any other questions, let me know. But otherwise, I think we'll pretty much finish up there. There's one last question from Wan Baru. My question, Richard, is priorities. What are they in starting a business? Who can relate to this? Thumbs up if you can relate to this, by the way. Starting a project is extremely exciting. It's like your brain keeps pouring in with ideas such as prospecting, showcasing your ability, marketing the business, but I don't think I could implement everything in all one go. How do you prioritize? Is there like steps we could follow to keep us on track, starting from an idea to make it into a well-established business? Yes, it's called 8-Step Startup, and it's coming soon. It's being re-released soon. The course I built, 73 sessions on starting from what's your idea all the way through to how to build a business. The very least, monetize you is how to do that as well, in a kind of a wireframe approach to building a business. All this is on www.therichardmoore.com. And if you check it out, you'll see that information there. But more practically right here for you, number one is you need to get your MVP, your minimum viable product, as quick as possible. I need to get something of a prototype, a working proof of concept of the service or the product into some hands of customers. That's going to help me leverage some feedback from the market, and then I can use that to do my next iteration. Expect your first product to be crap. That's the point. But rather than you build it and try and make it perfect in your eyes before releasing it, that is a mistake. It's a mistake because perfect in your eyes doesn't mean perfect in the eyes of the consumer. What's better is to say, let me create a working example, then collaborate with the market by way of getting their feedback on how they view it. Do they think it's crap? Did they not buy it? I had someone recently, I was talking to them about it, and they said they built this kind of it was a candle business, and they said, look, I don't like the product. I didn't get on with it. I didn't really like it myself. And then when I sold it, no one wanted to buy it. There wasn't much kind of a keenness for it. So that's the point where you would pivot and go, we need to work on a better product. Just because you think it's great doesn't mean that the market will. So you need to get it out there so that you, listen carefully, so that you can complete building the product. You can only complete the building of your product if building it is half of it. The other half to complete it is getting feedback from the market. Does anyone love it? If they don't, it's not finished yet. But you need to have that exposure to your market to see if it's actually any good. Okay, so MVP first, minimum viable product, a working example that you can put into the hands of people, and get it out for free. When I first started, it wasn't free, but but when I first started consulting, it might as well have been free. It was so cheap. I think I did like a month's consulting. This was over email though, for like $300 or something hilarious like that. So it's a really low amount. So people were like, yeah, let's just do it. But it was just like, I just wanted to get response, and that's what mattered really. Salama, hello, nice to see you. And so I think it's important to get it out there straight away. Almost simultaneously, pretty much simultaneously, you need to work on the content that shares the journey, because people love that story behind your product, and it's important that you get behind producing that so people can kind of go on that journey with you, and the early adopters will have that kind of narrative behind what they're buying, and that will give them a kind of a springboard to leverage. They're the two huge things. One is have a product you can get into hands of consumers, and then the second thing is content against what you're building, to share the growth and the build and the journey and the climb. That's important, and that will help you grow further. But what's so crucial is what you don't do is say, I won't let the world see this until it's built, and I won't let anyone have it unless they pay. It may be you need a price point, but as much as is possible, get it into people's hands. Far better to get it to 100 people, whatever your product is. I would rather get 100 people look at it for $1 each than one person look at it for $100, because I've got more people who can talk about it. For every person who looks at it and who likes it, that possibly is someone who shares more about it. That's what's so essential. Make it accessible so that people then start engaging with it. Okay, so that's my response. That's your priorities. Get the thing working. Barely working is fine, so that you can get it in the hands of people. Then refine it based on the response from the market. It's silly though. Some people start their business going, I'm getting my business cards, and on day 2 or day 1, I'm going to get my logo designed. Day 2, I'm going to get my business cards. It's all that kind of thing. And it's like, it's not necessary yet. Get the product, then start talking about it, and start getting pre-sales going, or getting some kind of dialogue. Engage mad amounts with your audience. Talk to them and ask them how they feel about it. That's so essential. I'm going to finish there because of time. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a massive, massive Monday and a great week. I'll continue answering questions on comments after this, but otherwise, have a wicked time. Check out me on Facebook, so richardmoore.official. But otherwise, have a great day, and thanks so much for everyone for joining in. See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Facebook. Thanks so much for joining in, and see you later, everyone on YouTube as well. Take care.